What's up, everybody? As you guys know, recently I had PRP and some gel put into my knee, and it was an awesome experience. And we're gonna have Stephanie Murata, the one who administered it to me from Dr. Morton's office, give us more details on it. So don't miss this; it's gonna be real interesting.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. My name is James, obviously joined by Enson, but today, another special guest, Steph. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the listeners that are joining us that don't know too much about yourself, if you wouldn't mind just giving a bit of an introduction and maybe some of your credentials.
Sure, absolutely. So I am currently an orthopedic PA, or orthopedic physician's assistant. What that means is I can evaluate, diagnose, and treat orthopedic injuries. Most currently, I am with a joint specialist. So we do total reconstruction of joints, but we're also into preserving that joint, because not everybody may be interested in having a knee replacement, because sometimes it can be, or a joint replacement, because sometimes it can be a scary thing. So we just try to facilitate maybe healing and sort of better lifestyle and better ability to, do the things you want to do or the activities that you're interested in. So we're trying to keep them as mobile and as active as they can.
So it's almost kind of like before you go to that last resort of surgery, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
That's exactly right.
Okay, perfect.
Well, not everybody is ready to do that, but when you can't do your sort of activities of daily living, so things that you like to do, when you're not able to do those anymore because we've tried and exhausted everything possible, that's when you start thinking about having surgery.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, the people that have seen Enson's, social media posts may have kind of figured out where we might be going with this podcast. But I mean, Enson, why don't you give a bit of background in terms of why you've recently been in contact with Steph?
Well, I've been, my whole career, I was raised in the old school days where pushing hard was the right thing to do, pushing past the pain barrier. If you don't push past the, if you're sore and you're tired and you don't train, you're a pussy. So we really pushed our body to the brink. The doctor says rest a month. I was more like, okay, he'll tell me and an old lady the same thing, so I'm resting 2 weeks. And of course, that toll took on my body and my shoulders, my neck, my knees are really bad. And it got to a point where if I do any type of mediocre sparring or movement, quick movements back and forth, my knees would swell up. And when it swells up, I would have a very limited extension, very limited bend. And then even to a point where going up and down stairs, I had to take one stair at a time, like a little granny, like holding onto the rail and stepping one at a time. So, I was always looking, I've never had surgery on myself, ever. I've never done any, as bad as my body is, I've never done any surgery. And I refuse to do surgery unless it's the last resort. And, Steph's worst half, Sheldon, he's like a brother of mine. So he comes by and I got to meet Steph. All I knew Steph as is like this unreal wrestler that's actually able to suck up Sheldon's shit, I mean, that was like, whoa, Steph, hey. So that's all I knew her as. And then she always would come in and give me good advice on my body and some training stuff. And it's like, oh shit, I would always tell Sarah, like, oh, she's pretty knowledgeable, man. I better ask Steph, It's like, okay, let's ask Steph. And then, I found out, she works in the office and then we started, I think Steph says you have messaged to me a lot. He messaged me to me, like, talk to me about this a lot, about you should do this, you should do that. And I'm like, needles, I'm just definitely afraid of needles. I mean, everyone says, "Oh, you get a tattoo," but the tattoo goes in like this deep. Those needles go in this deep. You know, it's a whole different thing. So I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, fuck that. I ain't doing those needles. And then she's talking about poking one in my knee. I'm like, no way. And she's trying to convince me by telling me that, oh no, I do it to myself. You know, I can. You know, I do it every day. You know, like I'm like, if some prissy old lady told me that, I'd be like, okay, maybe it's okay, but. You're talking to this like top world class wrestler, and you know wrestlers aren't pussies. You know they're tough mother MFs. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, Steph's saying that, but still that don't mean shit because she's tough. You know what I mean? So yeah, it came to a point where I was like, okay, you know what? My knees are getting bad, and it's just not. It's you know, like you said, you know, when things you want to do, it hampers it. It even got to a point where my daily walks, my daily going upstairs, not just things I want to do, things I had to do was getting to be a burden. So I figured, you know what? I'll try this. I kept trying to convince myself it can't be that bad. You've had a lot of shots before. It can't be that bad. And so, yeah, that's when I decided, you know what? She mentioned PRP. And, you know, I all I could think when she said PRP was like PCR test because I've done so many PCR tests for COVID. And I'm like, PRP, PCR. I'm like, you know, so I didn't understand what it was. I looked it up and it looked really interesting. So I figured I gave it a shot. And that's when I went in. And this is where, you know, the reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because I just felt the moment she put it in, the pain that I expected to be like a 50 out of a 10 in pain. And then it was like literally, it was like a 1 or even almost a 0. I felt almost nothing. Wow. I don't know if Steph's super good or it's just, I'm just over anticipating it so that it made it less painful. Mm-hmm. And the moment I stood up on my knee, I mean, when I read up on it, it should get worse before it gets better after the treatment. Mm-hmm. Well, as soon as I got up, I was like, "Whoa, shit!" Like the bend, like I bend my knee fully. I had a shooting pain on the inside of my knee. That was gone, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I could already feel the difference. Of course, when I walked out of office, I felt my knee a little bit stiff, and it almost gave me a little bit of scare where I feel like I got to be careful. But I didn't. I just walked up and down the stairs normally. It felt a little stiff, like almost like I did a hard workout the day before, and I woke up in the morning, my knees are stiff, but. Today I went, I weight trained at the gym. I went for a walk on the beach and I went for a swim. And yesterday I did too. There's that one day she told me to stay out of water. I did. But yeah, so I felt that this is such a good thing. I mean, it's affordable. It's not even painful at all. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty natural if you ask me. They're taking out your blood, putting it back in. I mean, Steph's going to explain it, but yeah, I felt that this is, you know, I'm about helping people, and I felt that this is something I would like to spread. That people that having questions on it, you know, a lot of people probably have problems that want to do so. Because I think, Steph, can't you do it to like your shoulder or any joint in your body, pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's a little bit. You can do it to any joint in your body. Some joints, like your hip joint, you need to make sure that you have imaging. So whether it's an ultrasound or fluoroscopy, which is an x-ray, to make sure you're in the right spot. The knee is such a large joint that you can just use ultrasound, or, you know, you can use landmarks to put it in the joint. But some of the other joints, you do need some other modalities to make sure you're in the right spot. But yeah, you can pretty much do it wherever.
And you know what I found super interesting, James, is when so what the process is, they draw the blood and then they spin the blood. And the crazy thing is, you know, for us normal people, blood is just red blood. You know, it's like blood. You clean up blood, you wipe all the red shit up, you know. I've never thought of blood being separate components. So she actually spun it. And I thought they like added something on top of my blood and stuff, because there was 3 little compartments. I was like, and she actually told me, well, if I shake it, it's just going to look like your blood again. I'm like, whoa, you mean that freaking machine separated different, I don't know, what do you call it? Different liquids in my blood. So try to explain that. I still don't understand it. I mean, you said the little part was good.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that I would say is that, just so that people know how long this has been around, that the earliest mention of PRP and when they first thought about it was actually like all the way in way over 20 years ago. But, the earliest mention that I found was like in in the 1970s. And that was like within I know, right? It sounds crazy that they knew about this so long ago, and only now it's like more people are hearing about it. So it was originally in hematology, and then they used it in cardiovascular or cardiothoracic surgery, and eventually they used it in orthopedics or in the early 2000s. And what they found is that the PRP, and you sort of alluded to separating out of the components, so we'll head there first. There's when you spin it down, and you can see it in the example or the picture of it that you're going to post later, that the whole blood is actually made up of several different components. And a lot of those components are I know, right? They're too small for people to see with your naked eye. But the major points that you can see are there's something called platelet poor plasma, which is the pure yellow stuff on the top, which is what you're going to notice. And then there's a platelet rich plasma, which is the middle smaller section, and then there's the remaining blood, and the remaining blood is like red blood cells, white blood cells, and sort of the remaining other components that didn't filter out that are a little bit larger than the rest.
Question.
Yeah, sure.
Seth.
Yes, of course.
So when they do EPO is what they take out that bottom part then.
Well, when they do EPO, so that's actually a great example. The EPO is an example of you stimulating your body to make more red blood cells. So it's not necessary. Sometimes you can do blood doping, which is essentially just taking whole blood and putting it back into your body. So whether you took your blood out and stored it, or you're using somebody else's and you put it back in, we do none of that, but you can do it, obviously. Whether it's for surgery or for sport enhancement or for whatever reason that you're doing it, what that does is it increases the number of red blood cells and hemoglobin that's in your blood. And the hemoglobin is your oxygen carrying capacity. So the more hemoglobin you have, then essentially you're going to resist fatigue better, because you can transport oxygen to the muscles and then transport waste away from the muscles.
Yeah, I guess better
so
stamina.
Then that lactic, right, exactly. So you're going to have less fatigue and better stamina, because you're going to have that the lactic acid that naturally builds up in your cells. That's the fatigue and stuff you feel in your muscles. When all of that is like kind of when you're doing a light warm up or you're doing something that your body can keep up with, the lactic acid is pulled away so that you don't get tired. But when you
that would be from that bottom section, yeah. Oh, okay.
That's exactly
Holy
right.
shit.
Yeah.
Well, we took the middle, yeah.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay, so what was that again? What the middle does is it helps my body repair and stuff, yeah?
You got it. So the PRP, which is the middle stuff, or platelet rich plasma, there's a bunch of stuff in there, and I think it's important to kind of know what sort of the definition of a platelet is, and that's it's a cytoplasmic fragment that is a megakaryocyte that's found in bone marrow. So as that comes out, it actually has over 30 bioactive proteins, and what that does is there's certain proteins that will benefit and enhance healing, and very, very specific ones, but they're too small for us to see. So what we're doing is, and the amazing part is that your body already has it in it. And so we're not taking anything from the outside, which is also called allogenic. So this is auto, or yourself. So all the stuff auto is from your own body, and so that's actually kind of the safest preparation you can do. You can do things that are allogenic, which are other sources of this, which is using somebody else's tissue to help your own. And so going back to the auto portion of it and the PRP, you have growth factors and cytokines and exosomes, which are all basically fancy terms to help your body grow and to repair itself. It doesn't necessarily, I find that the biggest thing that people talk about is that they have decreased pain. And that, I can't necessarily say that it's growing one thing or another, but I think the fact that people's symptoms are better, that's a big bonus for me, because that's what we're trying to do, is help people manage their symptoms and manage, sort of life, to be able to do more stuff that they really like to.
And then that other thing we put in, what was that gel thing that some hyaluronic
Okay.
acids, whatever?
Mm-hmm. So the PRP itself uses other growth factors, or you can put other growth factors with it, or you can pair things together to help facilitate the PRP working a little bit better. The gel stuff that we put in is called viscosupplementation. The viscosupplementation is made up of hyaluronic acid, and there's different preparations of that. And then the cross linkage is within the hyaluronic acid makes up the molecular weight of that preparation. But essentially what it does is it works together to help improve healing and improve the microenvironment within your knee to help it heal and function better.
And so, like, I did it this time, yeah. So how often would you recommend, like, how long does this actually last, and does it actually do just temporary relief, or is it actually a type of a healing process possibly? And how often do you have to do this?
So you hit it sort of right on the head, in that it is a healing process. So this is a process that your body, I like to think of it as a process that your body's probably already doing, but you're tearing it down faster than you can build it. So by concentrating all these growth factors down, now you're creating more of an acute environment instead of a chronic environment. And so your body's able to, it was able to before, but now it's sort of signaling that, hey, we need some help over here, versus, oh, this is an old thing, we'll just get to it later. And what that helps is the signaling and the growth factors help your body to improve itself by remodeling some of the tissues so that you're able to do stuff you like to do again.
Or do the daily shit without pain, yeah.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal. And you're talking about, like, how often you should do it and how long does it last. So ideally, I believe that, especially like right in the beginning, because it's been most people come to us and they have bad arthritis. And so it's been a long time problem. So I feel that doing a couple injections, maybe spaced 4 to 6 weeks apart, is the best. I usually start with a series of 3 injections, but it's expensive. For some people it's expensive, $800 for an injection. And it can be expensive for people, especially when, everything else is rising and everything else as far as cost wise. So, that's a consideration. Will it help you in the long run? I believe that it really will help you in the long run. And what the 3 injections do, but even if you did 1, I think that'll help you. The others sort of boost that healing again. So it's kind of like when you're running a marathon or something, and you sort of carb loaded in the beginning, and then as you're partway through the race, if you don't take in any nutrition or take anything in, you're going to start running out of stuff. And so if you take it in again and you sort of replenish some of those storages that you're using, then you're able to continue on throughout the race.
Do you recommend me doing another one before I leave for Japan then? Because I won't be back till like July, August,
I think that's too soon.
Okay.
I think it's too soon. No. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not. While I love seeing you and I love treating you and I love helping you and I'm glad that it's working, I think that you're better off spreading it out a little bit to really get the maximum benefit from each injection. So
because I'm not like super, I don't have arthritis yet, so yeah, I'm not that bad yet. Yeah.
I actually think you do have arthritis. I'm sorry.
Wow, big reveal.
Sorry.
All right,
Sorry.
good to know.
Yeah.
Exclusive.
I apologize if I didn't make that clear before, but yeah, I think you do have arthritis.
No.
And it's worse in some areas rather than others. And but everybody's sort of level of pain and level of discomfort is a little bit different. So, I think the demands that you have asked of your body is probably like astronomical and compared to like the average person. So I think that that's something. Well, yeah, me too, right? So I mean, I think
Hey,
that
you're the wrestler.
well,
Yeah.
even still, but yeah, but I was never in a situation where fortunately wrestling has rules, and those rules prohibit somebody from like arm barring me and choking me and hitting me in the face and other things. So I think that
She's making like wrestling's a gentle sport. Come on. Wrestling's hardcore, bro.
well, I mean, no, it's rough, but I mean, at least there's some
Yeah.
rules where some of the things are not as drastic, and while I was prepared to do a lot, I don't think I was prepared to die every time I went into the ring. So, or onto the mat. So I think that there's a huge difference between the two. But that being said, the day-to-day grind is the kind of thing that takes the toll on your body. And I don't think you are able to compete and perform on a high level without essentially paying a price. Everything comes around and everything comes due. So, and that was kind of what sparked a lot of my interest in sort of the field that we're talking about is orthobiologics. And that's like literally, I didn't make up the name. They have like a whole huge field and resources and information that they're studying and everything about it. So, but a lot of it is all in preservation of your joints so that, you don't end up getting a replacement too early.
Super important too, man.
So
Absolutely.
Steph,
Absolutely. Yeah.
question for me, because I'm sitting here all the way in the UK. My previously broken shoulder is itching because it will never be able to get surgery because apparently it's not too broken for surgery. But this sort of thing sounds, like, oh, that's exactly the sort of thing I want. But how popular is this treatment? Because I'd never heard of the treatment before, and I don't know whether it's because it's not over here in the UK. So I don't know, like, is it something that's sort of increasing in popularity?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that it's definitely increased in popularity, but the other side of that is, well, I think it's definitely increased in popularity. I would be shocked if they didn't have it in the UK. I don't know specifically of any physicians over there, but I would be shocked if they didn't have it because it's so, I don't know, I feel like it's worldwide and so spread that I would be surprised if they didn't. And the last part is that I think it's really important to find somebody that you trust. And, Enson's asking a lot of good questions and great questions as far as the research, like how are you doing this and what's happening and what makes your preparation of PRP different than somebody else's. So I think that there's a lot of different steps. And I think that's part of the reason why, people have varying results. Because different concentrations and different preparations and different, and even how you're treating your body ahead of time is huge as far as the outcome and the benefit that you're getting. One thing that Enson just finished was his yearly fast, in commemoration of his dog that, Shuto is obviously a big part of his life. And having that yearly fast, it kind of coincided with when you decided to do the PRP, but that sort of prepared your body to have a great benefit from this as well. So that's there's a bunch of things you can do to sort of increase the benefit that you get from PRP. Things you can do is, sort of having a fasting mimicking diet or a fast itself.
Wow.
Perfect.
Annual
yeah, no, so it
now.
worked out perfect. It worked out perfect, but it was really, but I in my head, that's one of the things, because you're saying that you had so much benefit so fast. And I'm wondering if I typically don't make my patients fast, but I'm wondering if that was a huge part of it.
Are you and obviously Enson brought up your sports background, but do
Yeah.
you find this treatment is becoming increasingly popular with athletes?
Yes, actually, I think at one point it was so popular and so beneficial that the International Olympic Committee banned it and said you couldn't do it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I am not up to date as far as whether it's banned currently. Usually, if we have an athlete that we're treating or something like that, I look up the most current rules because they change so much. But in the past, and that might have changed now because it's so prevalent, and they know that, especially if you're getting your own cells, that um, it. I guess it could be considered performance enhancing because you're going to heal so much faster than if you didn't have it. And it's not necessarily that you can use it just on your joints. A lot of times you can use it on, your tendons and different things that aren't necessarily healing that fast, or to even increase the rate at which it heals. So you can get back to
Wow.
your sport and get back to everything. Yeah, exactly. So they,
Wow.
like I said, I'm not sure if they banned it currently, but there's a lot of things that they ban that, uh, you know, I think can be performance enhancing depending on, what sport you're in and what's happening. So they
Well,
always
no
change
worries
things,
for
so it's like they don't.
no worries for me and James. I don't think we're gonna be trying to get on the Olympic team anytime soon.
I am. You can add me to that list. You can add me to that
Yeah, there's no chance.
list.
But table tennis, maybe.
Table tennis is that's like super competitive. It's crazy, and
It is.
if you like, it's so fun to watch, but it's almost like hockey and golf, where after they hit the ball, they need to like highlight it so that you can follow it because it's so fast you can't even
Yeah,
track it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
So I'm just curious because obviously your medical background, your sports background. Obviously a lot of people that watch this podcast are really into training, really into combat sports.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there any advice you'd give for them in terms of like injury prevention? Any maybe steps that
Oh
they can
wow.
take?
Um, I think I think probably the best advice is, well, so I guess there's two sides to the coin. Am still of the I was of the school with Ensign where, if you have some sort of uh, ache or pain or injury or something, you just push through it and you keep going. But I mean, I don't know a single athlete who has gone through competition that hasn't had to compete injured. Like,
Yeah.
stuff happens.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
And you can't change, maybe you can't change the fight date, or you can't change the tournament date, or you can't change, you've spent all this time preparing for your tournament and your competition and everything, that it's going to happen regardless. So it's a matter of pushing through. And if you can't push through during practice, you're not going to push through during the competition, because that's what your habit has learned. The unfortunate part of that is that I think that we're doing some damage to your body by continuing to go through that. It's sort of, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's two sides. It's,
Mm.
the person that can tolerate the most and can, take the most pain and take the most um, sort of adverse situation and overcome that, whether it's an obstacle or whatever it is, like you couldn't get to practice, or you could, even COVID is a great example, because look at all the athletes that, that couldn't train with somebody else, right?
Mhm.
So all of those sports that couldn't train with somebody else because you're not allowed to, they all had to like figure out something else to do. That being said, I think the best thing that helps you is, ironically, warming up. I think that as you get older,
Mm.
Yeah.
or as you continue in your sport, it plays a bigger role. At
Stretching and
times,
warming up.
right? But I mean, it sounds so simple. It sounds so simple. I
Yeah.
think that helps
So
the
important.
most.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and even younger athletes, I think that your body's able to adapt a little bit better, and so you don't realize it. Where you're 5 years old and you just start taking off running, versus the 40-year-old that is you know what? I'm not going to take off running because I'm going to pull a hamstring or a quad or something like that. And the best example that I can think of that is, like if you take, I don't, for lack of a better explanation, I think of sort of Laffy Taffy as an example. So if you take it and you put it in the freezer, you know, a big bar of it or whatever, and you take it out and you try and bend it, it's going to shatter or break in different pieces. But if you take it and it's like sitting out in the sun and you try and bend it, it's going to like stretch way out to here before it breaks or rips or does anything. And I think sometimes a visualization of that helps people understand sort of some of the stuff that's going on. Granted, there's limits to everything. It's, you know, if your arm is way back here and people try to put it like over here, it's not really made to go that far. So it's probably going to damage something or injure something. But within limits, I think it helps you.
You know, it's funny. Going back to what we're talking about, fighting injured.
Yeah.
My always, you know, like even my guy Tsuyoshi, he would come on and, you know, say, "Oh, my knee's a little sore for the fight." I'm like, we got to work through it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
the way it is. I always tell him that, you know, I don't think I've ever went to a fight 100%. If you can go into a fight 100%, I always believe that you're either very lucky or you didn't train hard enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know, the funny thing is, you know, it might be going off a little bit on the tangent, but when Steph was just talking about, you know, training through things, you know, and wearing down it's going to actually break down your body. You know, my body's really screwed up. Like I can't lift my arms past this, you know, I can't get my arm back past this, you know. I mean, my body's screwed up. My neck's tight. My knees are a little bad, and it's probably due to pushing myself through the limits. But I know, you know, depending on your objective, like for my objective, it wasn't to, my body's only going to live so long. My spirit's going to live forever. And I always felt that I would never want to sacrifice my physical self to not gain more in my spiritual self. So people might gawk at this and think it's really stupid, but it's not stupid because it's my mindset that I had when I was fighting and my reasons for training so hard like I did. I felt that these tolls that I took on the body built me spiritually. So I'm the person that I am, and I believe mentally and spiritually as strong as I am because I pushed my body to what it is. And the small sacrifice I made was now my body's not fully functionable, but I'm lucky because I can drive a car, I can walk, I can make bracelets, I can still lift weights, I can do everything. Not to the best range of motion that I would want to. Walking up and down stairs is not as comfortable as I would like. But I don't know, for me, it might be against most people, especially in today. I feel like my sacrifice that I made, that I put through my body, I would do it again. Maybe I would stretch more, warm up better, but as far as pushing myself to the limit in training, gain so much spiritual strength and enlighten myself, I feel, for something that the physical life is a little dash. You know how they say born on 1967, dash died? That's the physical life, because they put it in the dash because it's that short. The spiritual life is eternity. And I feel like, man, like I always say, if there's a burning building and I feel like I can help a child on the second floor, I wouldn't hesitate to run in to save the kid, because spiritually my spirit would die if I feel like I could have done something and I didn't.
Right.
I would not want to sacrifice that for it, you know, and prolonging my short physical life. I wouldn't want to damage my spiritual life. So of course, I'm not going to be that dumbass, and if there's no chance to run in and save him, I would run in like in the fire like a dumbass. No, if I intellectually thought that I had a chance, if I didn't do it, I would spiritually be damaged. So I decided, you know, I feel that way. Even in my training, you know, I don't regret not, you know, I don't regret as hard as I trained, because I gained so much spiritually. So, you know, I mean, it's off the subject, but when you said that, I was thinking that shit. You know what?
Yeah.
The sacrifices I made with my body is totally worth it, man.
Yeah.
The person that I am now is because I pushed myself so hard.
Yeah.
And the respect that I get in the MMA community is because of who I became pushing myself so hard in my fights and in my training. I mean, you even talk to anybody that I train with. Back in the day, I was someone you did not want to train with because I went hard.
Right. Right. No, I could not agree with you more, but I feel like your success was a big part of your how you mentally and spiritually approached both training and competition. And I feel that a lot of times that mental or spiritual side is what differentiates people from being a champion versus not. And you can take the physical side where you can take somebody that can jump faster, run further, lift more. But if the mental side isn't there, and the mental toughness or the spiritual side of believing and having that commitment isn't there, and that's the section that's super hard to train. I mean, you can train it to a point, but you can sort of nurture that inner belief and nurture some of that's going on, but that inner drive to want to excel, I believe is sort of in your either have it or you don't. And you can help nurture it and help bring it along. But unless you have that underlying drive, it's going to be really hard for you to find that ultimate success. At least within sports. Well, I guess you could kind of extrapolate that for other stuff as well. But that sort of inner drive or the competitiveness to excel and to sort of push through adversity is the part that's going to differentiate the, the person that didn't place or didn't go to the competition or didn't, that took second all the time. There's something that's intangible, and it's those intangible things that ultimately defines whether or not you're going to win.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was a little deviation, but I think that, I don't know. I totally believe it. Yeah, I do too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if there wasn't that intangible thing, literally there would be almost no need for sports, because you would know who would win or lose, but just looking at the stats.
That's a good point.
I also want, of course, I got a big following in Hawaii.
Okay.
And I even got like a message from a guy from Guam that wants to fly in just to do it. I mean, they do it in Guam, I think, but he was asking, he was asking more about, they always want excuses to come to Hawaii too. And I think the price point was a lot cheaper, for the 800 for the PRP was for him. I think they paid like 1,500 in Guam.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's wondering like, that price point, and I could include a trip to Hawaii, so
yeah.
I'm
well,
thinking that,
ironically, we have patients that have requested, we're sort of like at all the way to the end where you're getting a joint replacement. And we've had several people from Guam that have inquired about having joint replacement by Dr. Morton and within our clinic. And, we've set up places where, they don't necessarily need to be in a hospital in order to have all these have the procedure done. So we've set it up so they can stay at a hotel in Waikiki, or, they get special pricing to stay at a hotel in Waikiki, and then they'll come do outpatient surgery. And then we have nurses and therapists that will go see them at the hotel, make sure they're okay, make sure everything's going well, cool. And then they can go back. Yeah. So I feel like his vision is really good as far as setting things up. And we've had people from Alaska, from Guam, from, kind of all over, I guess, that want to come here to have the surgeries done, or even just the procedures. So yeah, absolutely. We can give them any information.
The last question I have is so if someone was interested in what this PRP or even the gel treatment, how would they contact you if they're in Hawaii? What is their homepage, phone number?
Yeah, actually, there's two things. The website, I'll just give you the website because that's probably easiest. And then on the website, there's different emails and all that kind of stuff. But it's www.drmorton.com. So that you spell out the whole doctor,
And
DOCTOR.
we'll have it
And
written down at the bottom.
perfect. Thank you so much.
James will do that.
Morton. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But but it kind of gives a better explanation of what's going on. And even if you end up doing that joint replacement, which, obviously we're not talking about here, one of the things that differentiates him is he is the first fellowship trained joint replacement surgeon that uses a robot to facilitate placement of that prosthesis. So,
Whoa.
yeah, no, it's, I was sort of blown away the first time I saw how much of a difference it made. I think a lot of surgeons are very competent in not using it, but when there's sort of a scatter diagram that you show, like, hey, this is where it was placed, this is what's going on. And, different things happen in surgery where maybe your placement wasn't exactly what you wanted from before, or it didn't come out perfect. But a lot of it is sort of eyeball. Like, hey, it passed the eyeball test. This is pretty close. Yeah, we'll go with this. Versus if you could have a robot or something to help you visualize the 3D space of what's happening. Maybe the leg moved just a little bit and you didn't even realize it when you were in surgery. And after the fact, you're like, oh, look, it's not exactly where I wanted it. Well, because we use the robot to begin with to line everything up, we know exactly where it's at and exactly the amount of bone to take off to resurface that joint before we even take it off, to know what the end result is. So then the outcomes are more consistent, and I feel like people have been really happy with the results because of it. But it's pretty crazy.
And actually, Steph is one of them Android robots, because when she drew my blood, and I've had blood drawn from me so many times, I didn't feel anything. I didn't even feel the prick, man. I don't know if it was just a chance of that certain time, man. But I always hate that first prick into the vein.
Yeah.
I mean, she got it one shot and I felt nothing. It was weird. And the needle looked kind of thick too, man. But anyway, just to let you know, she's one of those Android robots. That's why she's so precise.
Well, I appreciate that, but that just means, when you come back next time, there's more pressure, because now I have to duplicate that. I can't do that.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm glad that was, well, unfortunately, it can't be a super small needle because we need to protect the blood cells that we're trying to draw out from you, and we don't want to damage them, which is why the needle's kind of big when it goes in. But it's not, I would say it's probably average for blood draw.
What was that, like a 21 gauge?
18. Sorry.
18!
Yeah. So
how did I know it's hurt now?
I know. Well, yeah, exactly, right? So it looks like a giant hose. No, we put it back in with something that was smaller than that, but when we draw the blood out, it has to be a little bit larger. So unfortunately, yes, but I'm glad that it didn't hurt you. That's
not at all, man. Unreal.
Yeah. Maybe we were talking about the other stuff, so then you were distracted. Could have been that too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that shit going into my knee later. Like, oh god.
Yeah.
It was crazy though, because when she said she's gonna do the gel too, I was like, that's another needle. But it was crazy. She kept the one needle in and changed everything and did it all in one poke. I'm like, yes, only one poke.
Yeah. It makes well, I don't do these. I have done these injections on me, not the PRP, but I've done these injections on me. You can't do it once a week though. You can do them, there is a risk to infection. So you got to make sure everything's sterile when you do everything. That's huge. But giving it time to sort of take effect and to work, which is why I said, while I would love to see you again and love to do another procedure, next week is too early. You really should give it a chance to have everything work and develop and go through what it's going to do within you, because some of those things aren't necessarily what we actually put in. They're growth factors. So they are, so there's different signaling factors. This is in fact called paracrine, which means that I'm going to signal to neighboring cells to come and help with all the growth factors and everything. So there's, all different kinds of ways that your body can signal things to come, whether it's, from a neighboring cell to something far away to, the reverse, where it's, you're low on something. And so that signals something else, and then it comes in, and all of these different things. So your body's pretty amazing. And the crazy thing is that, for as much as we know, I feel like we're still just touching the surface as far as everything.
Wow,
We saw how much we've learned and how much we've figured out thus far. But I just feel like, it's still like the tip of the iceberg, and we have so much more to learn.
All right.
Yeah. Super exciting.
Anything else, James?
No, I think I know what I'm Googling though. After this conversation wraps up, see if I can find some. But no, really, I'm really grateful for you coming on the podcast, Steph. It was super interesting.
Like I said, absolutely. No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And, I appreciate your time, and it was very nice meeting you. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help. And, sometimes, I don't know, it's sort of like a network thing, right? So sometimes, I can ask even Dr. Morton. I don't personally know anybody in England, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't. He goes all over learning, to different conferences and different workshops to learn the most cutting edge things. And then, you sort of say, hey, this is what other people are doing. This is the best, what they, you don't want to be necessarily do the most cutting edge thing, but the thing that is, has been shown that's the most effective, that is the safest as well, is what you should be doing. And so things are all obviously, while it's not, hey, let's try this, and you just, heard about it from your neighbor or from like a random thing that you thought of that you've never had any research on. I think that doing some research and making sure it has the background and is sort of backed both by research and articles and everything else, and you can show that, hey, this really works, and this has like a, there's some evidence behind it, and it's safe and everything else, then you know what, I definitely think you should try.
Yeah,
you should look into it, James, for sure. You should look into it. Oh
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I would.
I think the reason why I'd be quite confident is it because it's like taking your blood but then putting it back in, so it doesn't feel so, like weird or surgery. I like the sound of it.
Yeah. The biggest part from taking your stuff, which is that autograph stuff that we talked about, completely, like, I think that is definitely the safest way. You can do stuff that's the allograft, which is like using other people's stuff. And ironically, I don't think that this is you by any means, but as an example, somebody that's had like a bone marrow transplant or done some other transplant, you can have other things that happen to you, including graft versus host reaction, which is like a huge inflammatory reaction to your body to this other foreign object that your body is recognizing. In addition to the fact that, I think a lot of people are familiar with like 23andMe and different things to like do genetic testing. Hey, this is what I'm about. This is where I'm from. If you've had any of those allograft type of transfusions or transplants, you can't do 23andMe because your DNA is contaminated.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
Because you've already incorporated somebody else's genetics into your own.
Oh, that's right. Oh, shit.
Yeah. So it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal.
All right, everybody. All right. Well, like and comment. Let us know if you've got any questions for Steph. Put it in the comments. I'm sure we can pass them on. But thanks, everybody. Absolutely. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Take care.